Good morning. So, finally, we are at the phase where we are going to find out as to how to destroy the mind. This is going to be the most important video, in as much as this gives you a technique or a method by which this can be done without going through the rigors of meditation, penance, and all that, or a yogic practice. This is it is just like hand being sort of handing it over on a plate, like just like handing over on a platter, they used to say. That's sort of a simple and a very effective way of furthering our progress. Now let's get into the methods. What we should not call it a method, but let it be like that. Let it be. So what we have been doing is we have identified ourselves with the mind, and the mind exhibits itself in the form of thoughts, and the thoughts only guide us in our design, in the life, day-to-day life, either in the materialistic world or in the spiritualistic world. Now these memories are, as we have seen earlier, the memories are the bricks with which the mind is built. The psychological mind is built right from childhood out of memories, and they form the memory bank. The memory bank is mostly made up of the bricks called memories. They are stored in the brain. Now, as we have already seen, the mind is an extension of the brain. So, whenever a thought comes out of the memory bank, the mind is extended. It's an extension. Mind is temporarily created with that thought. Mind is temporarily created with that particular thought. Take it in isolation. One thought comes out of the memory from the brain. Now, brain is a physical part. There, these memories are stored. So, just imagine one thought comes out of the brain. Now, since a thought creates the mind, that is the brain extended, and the thought is occupied in the mind. So, the thought makes a mind that is temporary in nature. If the thought persists, the mind also persists. If the thought lives with you, then the mind also lives with you. If the thought subsides, then the mind also subsides. If the thought is dead, then the mind is also dead. There is no mind. That is, as far as this one single thought is concerned. This mechanism. The mechanism is a wave-like thought comes out of the mind, either on its own or as and when we recall a particular memory. Both ways, a thought surfaces, a thought comes out. That thought creates a mind as an extension of the brain, as an extension of the memory. And if we take the thought in our fold, and when we start rethinking about that thought, about that memory, and when we start utilizing that memory, it becomes more powerful, and it occupies us. Basing on that, we do an action or we speak, enter into a discussion, give a speech, anything, either a speech or a physical action. It is based on the thought. Now then the thought subsists. As long as the speech or the action continues, it subsists. After that it subsides and then dies. In the sense, it goes back to the memory. It dies means it goes back to the memory. So this is a thought, one single thought extending from the brain and then getting almost sort of going back to the origin from where it came, to the mind, to the memory. Now let us imagine, suppose there are thoughts which are coming one after another in nanoseconds, in small gaps, very minute gaps. If the thought comes one after another, what happens is the each and every thought creates a mind temporarily, and then it goes back. So a continuous flow of thoughts one after another creates our own mind continuously, each piece of mind individually, each mind created individually, and then goes back. So this in effect gives an appearance that the mind is continuous. The mind as such exists as a unmanifested form. It is there, maybe unmanifested, but it is there. So we presume that the mind is existing as a single piece. Like a physical part, we presume that the mind is existing as a single piece. While in reality, it is not so. In reality, it is only made up of individual thoughts coming one after another and giving us a wrong impression that it is a continuous one permanently existing. But on the contrary, they are created and they are sustained and they are allowed to go back only because we engage with that thought. So because of that engagement makes that the mind seems to be a continuous one existing permanently within us. It doesn't happen that way. It is not so. Every thought comes at that time. See, you can yourself observe that there are periods of silence in between thoughts. Maybe very small, but they exist. So if the period of silence in between thoughts could be observed by us, then it is going to give us a lot of creativity as well as a lot of awareness. It is going to give us a lot of awareness. If we are able to observe that particular gap between these two thoughts, between any two thoughts, then you are likely to have a good awareness. And awareness will start blossoming. It will start blossoming. So the continuous stream of thoughts which come out of the brain gives a false impression that the mind is a continuous and a permanent one. Well, it is not so. Each one has got an individual path, but clubbed together, this looks like a permanent one. So this point has to be understood. So there is no mind as such what we think as a permanent mind inside us. There is a cosmic mind, that's a different issue, but the psychological mind as such is continuously, it is created, it is sustained, and then it is, it ends, it dies. While intellectual mind, it is always there. Now, intellectual mind does not send any thoughts on its own. The intellectual mind is also full of memories of knowledge accumulated, but it doesn't send any thought by itself. Only when a situation requires, then when I want to do a particular act or a profession or a technical matter, I recall that particular knowledge from my intellectual mind and complete the work. Then it goes back and stays put in the intellectual mind. The intellectual mind on its own does not send any signals to us like a psychological mind does. Psychological mind always sends thoughts which we are reminded of, which reminds us of the past memories. But intellectual mind does not send any thoughts at all. We can observe by ourselves. No thought will come out of intellectual mind because they are all stored knowledge. They are there. Things stored in a locker, they are there. And whenever you want, it comes out and helps you and then goes back. Only thing is we have to keep it under a constant sort of memory, either by recalling it or by utilizing that Suppose if I have, see, I have learnt in my younger age as to how to make instruments, or how to make say for instance a jewel. I learned it. I understood. I got the knowledge. Then when I start using it, then I can make good jewels with a good creativity and all that. It can be done. So when I go on making jewels, my capacity increases, my quality increases, my creativity increases, everything increases. But if I don't do it, if I don't take up that work, or rather sort of immersed in my other own work, then slowly the knowledge of making jewels will start fading away from your memory. Slowly. So unless the knowledge is put into practice on a regular basis, the knowledge also is likely to fade. That is how we forget things. We forget the knowledge what we gained. For instance, you would have done, say, electrical engineering course while you are studying. For 4 years, he studied and you become an electrical engineer. But after coming out of the university, you join a profession where you are supposed to look after human resources. So, what you studied about electrical engineering is not being applied in your profession, which is your breadwinner. Then what happens? Then because you are not able to use that, academic knowledge which you gained in the profession where you are daily engaged, if you are not able to use it, then automatically it will slowly go off. And after some time, after a few years or something, you will forget electrical engineering and this thing, utilities and all that. That is how it happens. Because so it needs to be practiced. So the intellectual mind is a storehouse of knowledge, while psychological mind is a storehouse of the memory and experiences. So the thought comes out of it, and it sustains and then goes away. This is how the thought appears and disappears. But the very nature of sort of process looks like as if there is a permanent mind. It is not so. Now, the same logic has to be used in our life, day-to-day life. Again, how? As you know, we use our psychological mind only for the purpose of living. Our memory, our experience, our knowledge, everything is being used. More particularly the psychological mind, while dealing with people, while having an interpersonal relationship, or dealing with the some acts of the society, of the country, or of the world, we always have to interact with them. And at that time, psychological mind only does the job. So when psychological mind is chained by your own identifications, it is chained by your own belief systems, it is chained by your own divisions of caste and creed and language, and if it is chained by your own customs and legacies and culture and all that, so then you become attached to them. So your mind does not like to come out of it. So whenever I do a job, or whenever I speak with the people, if I allow my psychological mind to respond to the other person, to the other incident, or to the other sort of happening, I will do it according to my own conditioning only, according to my identification only. You see, as long as for instance, I am a Hindu, and if a Muslim comes and starts talking to me, I will always have that idea in the back of my mind that the person I am talking to is a Muslim. Identification, nothing else. Just identification. The person whom I am talking to is a Muslim. That is what the thought will come to me, and I will be as careful as possible while dealing with that person. This is what happens. Now, the same way in the caste system also it happens. I talk to a person of another caste, then the division becomes apparent. It is another religion. There is a division between the religions is apparent. The language, the society, the customs, the beliefs, everything keeps you away from the mainstream, from the other people. And they also behave in the same way. So we all live in pocket islands of beliefs. We live in islands of belief, identifications, and conditioning. All this happens because of which there seems to be no harmony in our life, in our living with all the people. There is only a division or there is only a conflict, because even for small matters people fight for the religion. Now where does that fight come from? It comes only from your inner self. The body which has got a storage, there only the fight comes out. So the conflict happens because my psychological mind is different from your psychological mind and different to the other psychological. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of psychological minds. They only, while interacting with each other, create a nuisance, create a disruption, and thereby create a misery. Now, suppose we are able to disengage ourselves from this conditioning of the mind by effectively, say, just for example, protecting from the thoughts, then what happens is that we do not allow our own conditioning to guide us in our life. So a Muslim man comes to me and talks to me regarding a house, occupation. Normal people, what they do is, that person thinks he is a Muslim and he thinks this person is a Hindu. When you start thinking like that, then there is a division which is already created. Even without exchanging a few words, we have already created division. And when there is a division, it is not possible for us to go forward. It's not possible. So let's see how the conditioning of the mind is being taken care by the Manonasa. That we'll see tomorrow. Thank you.